Welcome back to Q and Assault every Saturday, every 2 p.m. Eastern Time, every week of the fantasy football season. Me, Nicholas, Hoodie Nicholas, will be live answering any of your sit-start questions, answering any trade questions you got. What's up, bro? Oh, we messing with the camera already. What's going on, everybody? As we kind of switch to last week, the format's going to be a little bit different. We're going to go through the most frequently asked sit-start players, just kind of give you my overall outlook for them for this upcoming week and how I would rank them. Like, if all 8 of these players were on my team as flex options, this would be the order in which they entered my lineup, in which they entered me. Pause. But let's start at the top here. We've got Josh Downs at Minnesota. Now, I can't really tell you much that y'all don't know about Josh Downs. Now, obviously, Joe Flacco is going to take over as the quarterback for Indianapolis. Now, Minnesota's a good defense. However, they allow a shit ton of points to fantasy wide receivers because they score really early and they get up very early, and then teams just need to play comeback mode for the remainder of the game, okay? And that's kind of the position that Indy's going to be in. They are 5.5 point favorites. Minnesota is. They've allowed the third most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Now, like in games where Flacco's been the quarterback, his target share has been crazy. He's averaging over 19 PPR fantasy points per game, over 10 targets per game. It's actually insane. Now, the one concern I guess I would have with this matchup, if you have Downs, you have to put him into your lineup, though. The one concern I would say is that Minnesota blitzes at such a heavy rate, and Anthony Richardson obviously escapes those blitzes where Flacco probably won't be able to, but hopefully he can get the ball out quickly, and that is how you dice up Minnesota, because if you look at the type of receivers that have really chopped them up this year, it has been those slot wide receivers, those quick slant over-the-middle type guys. You have Amari, who went 8 for 112 and a touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 13 for 101 and a touchdown. Jaden Reed, 7 for 139 and a touchdown. Stephon Diggs, 10 for 94. Debo, 8 for 110. Puka last week, 7 for 106. So I think Josh Downs kind of fits that mold there, and I think we're probably in for just a massive game from Josh Downs. As long as Joe Flacco's under center, like, you just continue to put Josh Downs into yours lineups, all right? And again, we're going to go down all of these players real quick, give the quick outlooks, and then we'll jump into some sit-start questions that have less of these players in them. After Josh Downs, we've got Romeo Doubs, because we've just gotten word that Jordan Love is expected to play. He's optimistic. Now, he drops down significantly. If Jordan Love doesn't play, then Romeo Doubs probably takes like the 7 or 8 slot here, probably all the way down to the last player on this flex list. But if Jordan Love is there, then Romeo Doubs has proved to be just the number one possession receiver in that offense. And Detroit, this game's going to be very high scoring. It was like 48 points. It moved up at least a hook, probably a full point by the time that this video goes live, to 49. Wouldn't be surprised if it ended up cracking 50 or 51 in terms of the over-under, because Detroit and Green Bay, they're gonna sling that fucking thing around. They're gonna put up a lot of points. So I just expect this to be relatively shootout mode here. And I want Dobbs, I want Jaden Reed, I want all the Green Bay Packers players in my lineup that are receiving passes from Jordan Love. So he's my number 2. Number 3, we've got Mr. Amari Cooper. Now, I want to get a little bit more in depth here. Miami is a tough matchup on paper for fantasy wide receivers, for fantasy quarterbacks. The over-under in this game is very high, though. It's at 49 points right now. Buffalo always plays Miami really, 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 really well. Amari Cooper, obviously newly integrated into the Buffalo offense. In Week 7, the week that he scored the touchdown, he played 34% of the snaps. Last week, that jumped up to almost double that, 66%. So I think with the integration of Cooper, 34, 66, this week we'll probably see somewhere in the 75 to 85% range, if not just a full every down player here. It's coming at the expense of Matt Collins, RIP. Shout out to Matt Collins' TikTok, to be honest with you. He's out here. He's on his creator fucking grind, and I respect that a lot. When I look at this offense overall, Josh Allen, he hasn't really been passing the ball at all. They've barely been throwing the ball. Through Week 6, he hadn't attempted more than 30 pass attempts in a single game. Then, the last 2 weeks, Cooper's here. Week 7, Week 8, he's thrown 33 and 34 pass attempts. Not a ton, but still, he has not thrown more than 30. And then all of a sudden, the last 2 weeks has thrown more than 30 in both of those. So we're trending in the right direction. And when you look at Josh Allen's splits versus Miami, he is a significantly more prolific passer against Miami in the 5 games in which he has played with Mike McDaniel over there as the head coach. The Bills are 5-1. His stats go from 1.8 passing touchdowns up to 2.6. Yards per attempt, 7.5 up to 8.7. Passing yards per game. Non-Miami teams since 2022. 245 passing yards up to 305 passing yards. Pass attempts, 32.8 up to 37. So Josh Allen is at his best when he's playing against Miami. Those stats don't even include the playoff game in 2022 when Josh Allen went 352-3 against Miami. So I'm just trying not to overthink this. I know Amari Cooper's coming off of more of like a bad game, I guess I would say, last week because he was not a full-time player. Keon 8, Khalil Shakir 8. I still think Amari Cooper is the most talented wide receiver right now in that offense, in an offense that I expect to have a very, very good passing day. So I don't want to have too much recency bias towards Amari Cooper. So he's going to be in there. Darnell Mooney, if you want to have recency bias, this is the fucking guy. Because right now he's the wide receiver 13 in fantasy football. Darnell Mooney plays against Dallas. This is the highest over-under on the slate, 51.5 points. And I have to say, these first 4 dudes, I think I would tier the first 4 together here. Downs, Dobbs, Cooper, Mooney, like they're in a tier that barely separate themselves from each other. I would be fine playing any of these dudes in my lineup this week. And if you want to play Darnell over Cooper, I got no problems with that. Over Dobbs, I got no problem with that. I look at the Dallas defense, and they're terrible versus the run, but they're a little bit better versus the pass. They do get Deron Bland back, who was an All-Pro last year. So that is a significant boost to their secondary. But Mooney is playing every single snap. Kirk Cousins looks really good. This is a very effective passing offense. Again, a 51.5 point over-under, expected to score a shitload of points. Yeah, he's just getting most of the deep targets on that team. So Mooney has shown ceiling. He's shown a good floor. He's shown great chemistry with Kirk. So I got no problem with him in my lineup as like a rock-solid, high-end wide receiver 3 flex. Again, right now he's the wide receiver 13 on the year. So no problems with Darnell. Bucky Irving, Kansas City is just such a tough matchup. This is a 46.5 point over-under. They're in Kansas City. I believe this is the Monday night game. He's been dealing with the toe injury kind of on and off. They said that it's probably going to linger all year, but he's been playing with it now for a few games. And his last 3 games, 15.4 points, 16.7 points, 18.5 points. He's just getting it done in every way possible. Rushing touchdowns, receptions, receiving yards. He's been good, dude. Over 11 PPR points in 5 of the last 6 games. He is number 4 right now in yards after contact per attempt among all running backs. He is number 3 in overall elusiveness rating per both PFF and Player Profiler. He has the 6th highest PFF receiving grade amongst running backs. Now you look at no Evans, no Godwin. Looks like Sterling Shepard is probably going to be out for this game as well. Actually, let me check the practice reports for today. RotoWire injury reports. See if we got an update, because they have to update. If they're playing on Monday, they have a practice on Saturday. Okay, we didn't have the update yet, but Sterling Shepard was a DNP on both Thursday, Friday. Bucky was also a DNP Thursday, Friday, but this was what he went with last week as well. He's DNP, and then limited, and then played. So we have to wait for the practice reports. But if Sterling Shepard's out, again, I just think it's more targets going to the running backs. We saw 14 targets go to the running back position on Sunday for Tampa Bay. Again, much tougher matchup. Kansas City run defense is really, really fucking good, allowing the single fewest fantasy points per game to the running back position. But I just think Bucky's been good enough to the point where I have relative confidence in him. So if this was a better matchup, he might be like the number 1 or 2 option on this list. But because the matchup is really, really tough in KC, he's going to drop down to number 5. We move to Mr. Cedric Tillman out here. Now, this feels like one where we'll probably get some pushback here, but the matchup is very, very tough. The Los Angeles Chargers, this is a game where the overall total is 42.5, so it's pretty low. I think both of these teams are expected to want to run the ball pretty often. The Chargers have allowed the 2nd fewest fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position on the season. Now, Cedric Tillman, he ended up putting up a big game last week. Kyle Hamilton dropped the easy interception right in his breadbasket that would have led to a much quieter game for Tillman. The Ravens were also without two of their top secondary players in Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins. So, like, I don't want to overemphasize the performance from last week. So, Cedric Tillman, I still think there is definitely bust potential here. I'm fine getting him into my lineup, but the matchup is tough. Jameis Winston, a couple of those interceptions get caught, and you don't know what that offensive production actually looks like last week. So he'll be number 6. Cortland Sutton is number 7. We want to talk about going against the secondary of the Baltimore Ravens, which Cedric Tillman got to enjoy last week. Cortland Sutton will go against them this week. This is a 47-point over-under. Baltimore has allowed the single most fantasy points to the wide receiver position. Now, Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins were both back at practice this week, so they are both expected to play, which is a major bump to the secondary here. And Bo Nix has been really, really good. A lot of that has to do with just the overall matchups that they've faced the last few weeks, the last month of the season. It has been the easiest schedule for any opposing quarterback over that time span. I just have a very hard time believing that a rookie like Bo Nix is going to come into Baltimore, and like put up a big performance. I just don't really see it happening, which will obviously affect Cortland Sutton. I think he's fine as a flex because the matchup is relatively good. They'll have to throw the ball. Cortland Sutton's been playing really well. So he's fine, but like I'm a little bit more hesitant on Cortland Sutton here, which leads me to Calvin Ridley. You want to talk about hesitation. Coming off of a massive fucking game in week 8, it is so hard to trust him, dude. Do we even have an update on like who is starting at quarterback for the Titans yet? I know it's been up in the air for a minute. Let's see. He's back at practice throwing. Titans rule out Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard, Will Levis, and Tyler Boyd. Listen, it's questionable. Yeah, we know that. All right. Sounds like Brian Callen said it was a good week for Will Levis. He added that he saw the strength come back and that Levis felt good after throwing back-to-back days. Callen said Levis will probably be listed as questionable versus Patriots. All right, whatever. I think if you have Calvin Ridley, you're kind of hoping for Mason Rudolph to play after last week. 15 targets, 10 catches, 143 yards. That was his first time topping 7.5 PPR points since week 2. He's been giving you 6, 3, 0 PPR points week in and week out. Not his fault completely. His target quality rating, 97th amongst wide receivers. His catchable target rate, 102nd amongst wide receivers. Number 1 in the NFL in unrealized air yards. Now, that's all like great propaganda if you want to say why he's a good buy for next year. But the problem is he's still dealing with Mason Rudolph and Will Levis, which is why I still, if you have Calvin Ridley, you probably want Mason Rudolph over Will Levis for this week and going forward. So they play New England, 38-point total. It's just like a game that I don't necessarily want to attach myself to. Like the fewer players you have going in this one, probably the better because it's going to be slow. It's going to be low scoring. It's going to be gross. He'll get a lot of Christian Gonzalez. Now, Christian Gonzalez is good for sure, and he shadows a lot, but it's not like Christian Gonzalez is an unbeatable player by any means. So I don't want the narrative to be like Christian Gonzalez is fucking Patrick Surtain. Like that's not the case here. So it's not like Calvin really can't beat him once or twice for a big play, but overall, the game environment, just the inaccuracy of what he's really done this year is where the hesitation creeps in for me. So start Calvin Ridley at your own accord. All right, well, those are the 8 dudes that I got most frequently asked about in sit starts. That is how I'd rank them. Those are my quick overview for them, and we will jump into the sit starts for y'all. Give me a second. I get yelled at all the time for having plastic water bottles. I got to say, I have a relatively it looks like crazy in the background, I know, but my apartment is relatively well decorated just for like a normal dude that has his own bachelor pad in New York. Like, I think I've decorated it well. Most girls, if I have them over, will compliment me on the decoration of it. But every single one of them gets so fucking upset that I drink water bottles. The plastic is so bad for the environment, all that shit. And I know it's true, but this is just a luxury that I will not let go. You sign up for Instacart, Costco, you can get like a 42 pack of these for $6, $7. I don't want to keep filling up a Brita, cleaning it, all that kind of shit. Just let me live with my water bottles, you crazy motherfuckers. All right, Let's see. Let's get into some questions here. Michael Tamayo. Full PPR, trade Chuba and Najee for BTJ. Running backs are Chase Brown and Josh Jacobs. Wide receivers are Garrett and Devontae Smith. I think your running backs and wide receivers are pretty equal, to be honest. I think you have two good ones on both sides. Chuba's probably on the downslope of value here because Jonathan Brooks' return. I still think he'll be usable, but overall, I'd probably lean the BTJ side, actually, just because assuming Chuba falls back into like kind of a risky flex play once Jonathan Brooks is on the field, then it's kind of Najee versus BTJ, and I'm taking BTJ in full PPR 9 times out of 10. So I'll go BTJ there. Full PPR, we got start 1, Cade Otton at KC or Jake Ferguson at Atlanta. Ooh. I want to say you asked me this question last week, too. I think someone asked me this exact question last week, and I said Ferguson, and it was obviously wrong because Cade Otton went fucking nuts. I don't know how you could sit Cade Otton at this point, I guess. Like, he's just been, like, the tight end 3 overall over the last month, so I'll go Otton here. Full PPR, start 1 wide receiver and 2 flex. We got Leggett, Tucker Kraft, Rico Dowdle, Tyrone Tracy, and Christian Watson. So we need 1 wide receiver, Leggett and Christian Watson. I love Leggett. I wish Bryce Young was not playing. If Bryce Young was not playing, this would be such a good start for Leggett. It's so hard to trust Bryce Young, man. I know it's hard to trust Christian Watson too, but that game environment is really good. I think, unfortunately, I'd probably lean Christian Watson here. And then in the flex, you're definitely flexing Tyrone Tracy. Clear concussion protocol. He's been a fucking monster. So I'm going to go Tyrone Tracy. And got Rico. I don't love Rico. I like Kraft. I think I'm going to go with both Green Bay playmakers and Tyrone Tracy there. I ain't never read the set, baby. Codeine, 5-point per passing touchdown. Pick 2. We got Kyler Murray versus Chicago. We got Matt Stafford at Seattle or Sam Darnold versus Indy. Leaning Kyler and Sam. Ooh, why you want to sit Matt Stafford? I feel like Stafford's always had Seattle's number there. I like the Darnold matchup. Kyler's matchup couldn't really get any worse. Obviously, Chicago's a great pass defense. They are without Jaquan Brisker, though. And who else? They're without another cornerback. It's not like Jalen Johnson type beat, but I'm going to be honest. I think I would lean the two pocket QBs in 5-point per passing touchdown. Stafford at Seattle, I feel great about. If Puka doesn't play, maybe that's the tiebreaker, and I can see going the way that you're leaning. But if Puka plays, I'm gonna put Stafford as my 1 most likely, and then I think I'd actually lean Darnold here. I don't like the matchup at all for Kyler. The White Yaksha, half PPR, risk Puka 4 p.m. or start Wandell 1 p.m. or Addison 8 p.m. Also, 2 running backs, Pollard, Hurt, Dowdle, Bucky, or ETN. Let's work backwards here. 2 running backs, Pollard, Hurt. Yeah, I mean, Pollard went DMP 3 days in a row. I have a really tough time. I know he's questionable. I have a really tough time believing he plays, though, after not practicing at all this week. If he's active, you're going to play him, though, and then I'd play Bucky as my 2. If Pollard doesn't play, and it's between Bucky, Dowdle, and ETN, I'm probably – it's impossible to trust ETN at this point. Let me see something right quick. I ain't never read the shirt, baby. Those are some untrustworthy running backs you got your fucking roster loaded with, my friend. I think I'm going to go Bucky and Dowdle there if Pollard doesn't play. And then half PPR, we've got risk Puka. Okay, so I think Addison and Wandell are close enough in the rankings that I would risk the Puka activity. I think there's a pretty good chance that we know if Puka's playing by 1, but we might not. Obviously, if Puka's active, you're playing him. I would ultimately, I think I would go with what you're saying there and sit Wandell, risk it with Puka. If he doesn't play, Addison's definitely not a bad fallback plan. Niner. Full PPR, start one wide receiver and start one flex. Jalen McMillan at KC, Jalen Tolbert at Atlanta, Cade Otton at KC, Xavier Legette versus New Orleans. So we need one wide receiver between McMillan, Tolbert, and Legette. If Shepard's out, I'd lean Jalen McMillan because he'll play a lot of slot. If Shepard's playing, then McMillan moves to the outside, and that becomes a really tough matchup. And I think I would lean Legette there, actually. The thing with Legette, I guess, I know Bryce Young is going to be playing quarterback, but the Saints are without Adebo. They're now without Marshawn Lattimore and Kool-Aid McKinstry for this game. So their cornerbacks are in hell right now. So I think I'd actually lean Legette over Tolbert. And then as a flex, I'd go with Otton. What up, big dog? Chase Brown or Tracy, half PPR. Great problem to have. I think you'll be fine either way. I guess assuming Zach Moss is out, I'd actually lean Chase Brown there. I ain't never ripped a set, baby. And, just kind of reminding you guys again, if your question has a lot of the dudes that I talked about earlier on, I will likely skip through them. Just because I don't want to spend most of this time just saying the same sheesh over and over and over again. Okay, here's a new one. Jesper Nader. Full PPR. Start one. Jordan Addison, Xavier Worthy, or Ramondre Stevenson. Okay, so got Jordan Addison in what should be a good matchup against the Colts, although he never fucking pulls through. We got Xavier Worthy, who's been running a lot of routes, getting a lot of targets. Monday night against Tampa Bay. Matchups fantastic. And then you got Ramondre, who's playing against a pretty tough Titans run defense. However, I do want to check the practice report for this one as well, because I want to say Tavondre Sweat. Jeffrey Simmons back to full practice. Tavondre Sweat is DMP. Status is questionable. He is likely going to be out for this one. Did Drake May clear protocol? So hard keeping track of all these goddamn fucking. He's cleared concussion protocol. Okay, since he cleared, I'm gonna roll with Ramondre there for show. Thoughts on Lockett with no DK? Had a stinker last week, so tough to trust, especially over Dobbs or Ridley. Yeah, I wouldn't play Lockett over either of those two. Would you start Kraft or Komet this week? Feels like another good problem to have, to be honest. I think I really like. I think I just like Kraft every week. Much better environment as well. Full point PPR flex: DJ Moore, D-Mont, D-Hop, or Bucky Irving. So you just need one. I'm just gonna. I don't think there's a world where I ever sit D-Mont. This could come back and bite you, obviously, but I don't think I really ever sit D-Mont. What two players do you value the most for my bench going forward? Jalen McMillan, Jalen Tolbert, or Xavier Legette? I think I ultimately like the two rookies the most. I think they probably present the most upside. When Dalton is back in the lineup, assuming he gets back into the lineup, I like Legette a lot. McMillan can show some upside. Jalen Tolbert, he's had good games, so I think he's startable, but I think there's also a world where Brandon Cooks comes back and takes a lot of his role. 12-team half PPR Superflex rebuilding team. Ladd or 2025 first mid to late? I mean, at this point, I think Ladd has proven that he's worth a first, so I would hold on to Ladd or trade away to get Ladd. He seems like he's going to be a real player for that Chargers for a long time. This week's outlook on McMillan. If Shepard's out, I touched it a little bit. McMillan will play a lot more in the slot, which I think is a really good thing for him. So I like him a lot more than I did last week. Thoughts on the better wide receiver this week in Downs versus Reed? Reed has been so big play dependent recently. Yeah, for sure. But this week I would play Jaden Reed over Josh Downs, assuming that Jordan Love is actually active for this game. Yeah, Reed is the type of player that would tear up the Detroit Lions, and that's such a high scoring over under game. Like I said, Minnesota scares me a little bit for the Indy matchup just because the pressure on Joe Flacco is something that I don't know how well he's going to handle, to be honest with you. He's not mobile whatsoever. So I like Downs a lot, obviously. You saw from the opening graphic that I had, he's a really strong, start. But Reed, I think, is a top 15 guy this week. Alex, PPR, start one. Cedric Tillman, Keenan Allen, Leggett. Also, if Pollard's out, would you start Chestnut or one of the guys you benched above? Ooh, Chestnut's sneaky nice. I told some people to pick him up if Pollard's out. I still think it's going to end up being some sort of a committee there in Tennessee. I don't see a world where they give Julius Chestnut 20 fucking touches, but I think he's a relatively sneaky flex play. I would start Tillman and Keenan Allen in that order. PPR, Chase Brown or James Conner. Great problem to have. I think ultimately I'd probably lean Chase Brown. The thing with Chase Brown this week is if Zach Moss is out, the entire backfield, neither of them have had massive games, but it's because they eat into each other's workload. Now that that's condensed to one player, the upside in the floor is so high for Chase Brown this week. But if Zach Moss is in, then James Conner for me. Steven Franco, full PPR. Need upside. Start one wide receiver and one flex. DJ Moore, Javonte Williams, I'm assuming. Deontay. Drop Pop Douglas or Mike Wilson for Tolbert. No, I'd hold on to Pop Douglas for Jalen Tolbert for show. We need one wide receiver. It doesn't feel like Deontay Johnson really has any upside. So if we want to talk about upside, I think I'm sitting Deontay Johnson. I don't know how much he's going to play. They're 9-point favorites at home, so the game script can get out of hand really quickly. Denver's obviously a great pass defense, so I would sit Deontay there. DJ Moore, I think, has a ton of upside versus Arizona's defense. And then Javonte, I sneaky kind of like, because on the flip side, Baltimore's run defense is good, but Michael Pierce is now out, and because they're such heavy underdogs, Denver, I'd imagine they're going to have to dump off to the running backs pretty often. So I'll go Moore and Javonte there. I ain't never ripped a cent, baby. And if you are still watching, make sure that you head over to Underdog Fantasy, because Underdog Fantasy is giving away a free square, a very, 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 very free pick right here. Jalen Hurts has to get one single total yard. One single total yard, okay? He plays on Sundays. You've got the next 24, 36 hours, whatever, to get this done. All you have to do is go on to the Underdog Fantasy app, download it, and when you deposit, use our code BDGE, $10 or more will get you this free square. All right, so you can use that $10 on the free square plus something else. Double your money, triple your money, get all your fucking money ready, and then we can run it. All right, so Underdog Fantasy, promo code BDGE when you deposit. I ain't never ripped a set, baby. All right, y'all. Looks like the comments kind of dried out. Sorry if I missed any again. I was just kind of skimming through all the ones that we talked about, a majority of the players. So hopefully the analysis up front helped you make some decisions based on those guys. So we're about at the 30-minute mark. I will cut it off here. As always, you could drop questions in the Discord. And if you're in the Discord, you want to contribute, you can answer other people's questions. That's how the community kind of grows. You want to drop questions, you want people's opinions on it, help somebody else out. Before you drop one question, answer one question. That should be a good rule there. Trade question for Mika real quick before we get out of here. I got Swift, Jones. Oh, guys, Swift, Jones, Brown. We got to be – I could think about it and get it, but, we can't be throwing out these fucking name brand ass no what's it called? No frills names. You got Jones and Brown. We need at least a first initial attached to them. And I feel like I need upgrade and move Swift because of schedule. Tampa Bay running backs have nice rest of the season. Thoughts? I I'd be okay going like Swift for Bucky plus. Like, obviously, that's a massive downgrade if you just go 1-for-1, but I agree. The Swift schedule gets very, very tough. Jones, I'm assuming you mean Aaron. Brown, I'm assuming you mean Chase. Those are both holds for me. But yeah, I could see a tier downgrade, Swift to Bucky plus like a wide receiver too. Tommy, who won the draft in Idiot League Mates in your opinion? I'd have to go back to the draft board. Casey drafted really well. Obviously, his team is 7-1, just scrapping shit. Sexy drafted very well. He did well. Honestly, my draft was really fucking good too, if I look back on it. I know everyone says this, but like I have just kind of gotten fucked with injuries. Like my first pick was Breece Hall, which say what you want, he's been good, he's been bad, whatever. I ended up trading him away, so it doesn't matter, but we're talking about the draft itself. Breece Hall, I think, was a relatively good draft pick at 8th overall. A.J. Brown on the turn. He's been a monster. Obviously missed like fucking 4 weeks, though. Round 3, Jared Goff, also traded away, but I think it was a relatively good draft pick. Round 4, Cooper Kupp would have been a great draft pick if he didn't get fucking hurt. T. Higgins, round 5, has been fucking amazing when he's playing. Would have been a good draft pick if he didn't get fucking hurt. Round 6 was Rachaad White. Ended up flipping him for George Pickens. So, like, I think they've both been relatively fine. Round 7, Round 7 was Kyle Pitts, I believe. He's been really good. Round 8, I want to say like 8 to 11 was some combination of Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Addison, and Josh Downs. So realistically, I kind of feel like I didn't really miss a pick through like 10 or 11 rounds. I just got fucked with injuries. Like, if those guys are playing the full year, Higgins is a monster. Kupp would have been a monster. A.J. Brown missed a month. Like, I don't know. It is what it is. Everybody got fucked with. Like, Tony's team got fucked with injuries. He had Rashee Rice, Nico Collins. He made a lot of trades. Changed his whole team around. But, yeah. I think we're going to do an episode dissecting our draft, though. So if you're not following the Idiot League Mates League, which is the league within our office that we document and put out 2 to 3 podcasts a week, that's its own separate YouTube channel. Your Idiot League Mates. That's it. All right, week 9. Good luck, y'all. If you have any more sit starts, again, drop it in the Discord, but answer someone else's question before you drop one yourself. That is how we build. Love y'all. Smoochies.